Welcome to another dysfunctional version of Chewing the Fat. I am embarrassed. And he's Krusty. He's Miyagi. And we're going to try to talk about our minus 27 camping outing.
And for those of you who tried to jump into the live stream, we apprate it. The fact
It
that
wasn't my fault, and it wasn't my fault.
You tried to hop on there three times with us.
Cheat.
But even so, there was a lot of good things that came from this winter trip, and we wanted to share those with you. The good things, the bad things, the learning lessons. And it was just going to be a lot more fun with you interacting live, and we can address questions and things like that. But plan B, make a video, post it, answer it in the comments later.
If all the nights I could use my Coors Light and I'm drinking water.
Well, same thing.
Maybe that's the problem.
Oh,
what do you got there?
You're the only one who didn't have your beer. I have New Glarus.
Kentucky Vanilla Barrel Cream Ale.
Oh,
that sounds kind of girly.
You're girly.
Stop.
You're the one drinking water, LaCroix.
Look, wow.
I'm trying to get nice and trim and fit for hiking season here. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Me too. One of my good friends just called me fat, so that was good.
Who's that?
A guy, one of my buddies.
Just making sure it wasn't me.
Because of COVID.
One of your good friends.
So we went out to lunch with a group, and he looked at me. He's like, "Ooh," he's like, "I don't like this COVID body you got." And I was like, "Oh, son of a bitch."
Wow.
He's right though. He's right. He's right.
Well,
I could be trimmer.
You should have said, "Well, I don't like your COVID face." So gotcha.
Exactly.
So
we are missing one person in this party, and that's Milos. Milos could not be here tonight, but from what I understand, he's got a message for everybody, and you should see it right about now.
It's Milos! I'm sorry can't be with you guys on the live stream. I have work, pay bill, got the basement rent is getting high this day. But man, almost a Krusty, Rob Pelton, Miyagi on the trail, three of the best guys you can ever go for hike with. I learned so much about Milos on this one for Helium, Minnesota, Boundary Water, almost Canada, almost for Canadian. And it's crazy, man. It has so much fun and so cold. So cold, Milos should never even get cold anymore. So thank you guys. I'm sorry I can't be there. Hello everybody for website, internet. And you can maybe say hello to Puppy. Give me up! Hey, Puppy! Come here, Puppy. Come here, Puppy. Little doggy.
So I haven't personally seen that message, so I hope it was entertaining, funny, and sincere. So,
yeah, it's Milos being Milos, and Milos is a very nice guy that he was very fun to have on this camp. Some entertainment, and I got to tell you, between him and Miyagi processing firewood, they're just monsters.
No joke. Like, I've been on a lot of camping trips, and that was probably the best wood haul I've ever had at camp. And hey, I've cut a lot of wood.
Milos and Miyagi, you're getting a lot of wood.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a given. That's a no-brainer. That's a given.
And I think you guys will agree on a trip like this, processing wood is key.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
If you sit still at all, you're getting cold. So. As we all know, that just the fact of chopping wood and sawing wood, you're raising that body temperature, up. So,
well, with the gear we had, and I said this before, I was a little too warm than ever too cold.
Mm-hmm.
With all the gear we had, with the fire we had, the tarp that we set up behind the fire really helped.
Yep.
Block the wind and trap and reflect some of that heat. But but it was a good time. But and I'm sure, Jeremy, you have a kind of a list of things and topics to go down. I'm sure.
Yeah. Boy, that was That was a good
taking off the
prompt.
fever, Jeremy.
Oh, darn it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the planning for it. So, Miyagi, you had been bugging that you wanted to do the, what do you call it? The frozen death march?
Yeah, so each year, for the last few years, Milos and I have been doing what's called a death march. So we do basically what we just did. We try finding the coldest weekend of the year, and we go out for 2 or 3 nights, and that's exactly what this was. So,
yeah, so he talked about that, and I suggested that we go up to the Boundary Waters. I just built a pulk this fall, and I've never done a trip where we got to walk across the lakes. So
that was pretty cool.
That's kind of what I was interested in. And when I was planning a spot, at first I thought, let's go to a spot that we've been before. And Rob and I were just up at Angleworm Lake in October.
Yep, it was just up the road from where we were.
So that was our initial plan, to go to Angleworm. And I'd heard rumors this winter that the lake was really slushy. So below the snow, above the ice, there's a slush layer. And I thought, if we go to Angleworm, we'll have the option of where we can take the trail if the lake is really slushy, or we can go on the lake, which is optimal because with a pulk, it's flat.
Right.
And then things started to get really cold, and the forecast was going to be really cold.
Like literally, I would say 2 or 3 weeks leading up to this, we would share the forecast every day. And every day, it just seemed to drop and drop and drop.
So some would say it got worse. Others would say it got better.
Yeah.
I was surprised that we encountered the slush layer. Even at those temps, we encountered some slush, and you had to kind of skate along it.
Not much, just that one little spot. But
it
was kind of funny
that at those temps,
that forecast that was getting colder. I know, Rob, in our other previous discussions, you talked about how cold you would camp. And Miyagi and I were having discussions, and I'm like, I think Rob will be good until about -15. If the forecast goes below -15, I think he's going to bail.
I thought about it. I didn't have the gear, rated for it, and I'm just.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I've been out in the cold a lot, but not quite that cold. Like single, low double digits, but 15 below. That's probably kind of where I max out, where I bottom out as far as temps go. Decided to go for it anyway.
Yeah, it kept on getting colder and colder, and in the forecast, and there's a direct correlation between bailing out and how much you have already invested in the trip.
Yeah.
And I got wool pants, I got a boreal shirt, I got all this stuff, and it's like, well, that's kind of what this gear is made for.
Mucklucks, a pulk. Yeah.
So we all made it up to Ely the day ahead of time, and I should back up a little bit. We decided that we were going to go down to South Hegeman Lake and just hike in a little bit, because we needed to spend more time processing firewood than we spent walking.
Yeah, for sure.
That was a good decision. Hindsight, that was a good decision.
So we made our way up there. And the day before, again, Miyagi and Milos drove up from Wisconsin. And how far did you drive? How long? It's like 9 hours or something?
8 hours. I think it was about 8. I think it was 9.
It's a good haul.
Yeah, it was a good haul.
Which, let me put it this way. Miyagi and Milos weren't bored on the car ride up.
No, I tell you, you hang with Milos, and this is, obviously we were driving, we weren't drinking, but I have never had so much fun on a drive up. I mean, Trips and I have a great time, don't get me wrong, but when you're hanging with one of the guys, it's just completely different. And Milos has this sense of humor. I mean, it is just...
It's out of control.
He's out of control. He sings. I mean, he acts. He's just, he was driving the whole time too. So, I mean, we had such a good time driving up.
And Rob, I believe they sang a song for you.
Yeah, I had a song sang.
That
was serenaded.
Can you give me the censored version of that?
No.
I believe it involved an F Rob Pelton were the lyrics.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, go on to R Pelton 1 on Instagram. It's posted there.
You'll find it. Yeah.
You'll find it.
Do it if you're not sensitive to adult language.
Right, and your kids aren't around. So
Yeah.
we were having fun. We were channeling Rob, and it was good. We had a good time.
So we all met up there, dropped our crap off at the hotel, went downtown. They have all sorts of stores in Ely for backpackers and outdoors people. I believe both of you two picked up some boots, huh?
Yep.
The Mucklucks was tough to decide to buy. I mean, they're $200 boots that are pretty specific. You can't just wear them around,
Anywhere.
You're not going to wear them in the summer, right?
Nope.
So $200, I decided to just bite the bullet and do it buy once, cry once. And I bought the last pair of 11s that they had in the factory. I drove right to the factory, and Miyagi ended up picking them up for me. But the Mucklucks, probably
Game changer.
Well worth it.
Yeah, top 1 or 2 pieces of gear that I brought on this trip. Those things were amazing.
Absolutely.
At those temps.
And the thing about the Mucklucks, you talk about the seasons, you can't even wear it in all of the winter seasons because Mucklucks are specifically designed for very cold, dry snow as opposed to, down in Wisconsin, I'm in southern Wisconsin, and we get a lot of snow, but a lot of times it's a wet, slushy snow, and you don't want to wear these because they're made from moose hide.
Yeah, and these are the Arctic edition ones. So they make Arctic ones, they make regular winter ones. They got a bunch of different ones. The ones we got were the Arctic versions, meant for 50 below zero.
Sure.
Yeah.
People who live in the Arctic, the Inuits, and people hunting muskox and polar bears, and those boots.
And I mean, both you guys bought a size larger than you usually wear to allow the extra thick socks, and we were kind of toying around with different inlays and everything, but definitely. I was worried because when we were on that frozen butt hang in Wisconsin, Miyagi, my feet got cold in my Mucklucks, and it was only 15, 20 degrees, and the difference was changing out those soles.
The soles,
Yep.
I gotta say that's one thing that during this trip my feet never got cold once.
Nope.
Not even a little bit.
No. All right, so we did some other shopping down there. We went to the Piragis and Army surplus place. What other gear did you guys buy? I bought some nice warm socks while we were there. Rob, I
bought a face mask because I forgot my face mask at home. It's funny. I went to this Army surplus store and picked up a $3 fleece face mask, and then I went to an upscale outfitter store and bought a $30 wool face mask.
Yeah,
that $3 one beat the hell out of that wool.
Yeah,
it did 100%.
I have that same wool one, and
I have it now, I guess. But for those who don't know, Ely is a very, very outdoorsy town. It's nestled right next to the Boundary Waters. So in the summertime, it is. In the summertime, just about every vehicle has canoes. A lot of outfitters out there. A lot of outdoor trips going in and out of the Boundary Waters that are planned, and that leave from Ely. Ely's a great, quaint little town in northern Minnesota. It's a little jewel, really. It really is.
Yeah, it's nice. So after doing the shopping, we headed down to the bar and got some pizza and a couple beers. Rob almost got his butt kicked by a waitress.
Almost got beat up by a hot bartender.
So it's COVID, right? And we're coming wearing our masks, and Rob has to sit by the window, and he doesn't want to sit by the window, so he tries to slide the table out, and she almost drop kicked him.
Boy, she come flying out of behind the bar and pointed at sign that was I mean,
and then she promptly told us that she had just finished her workout right before that.
Yeah, I mean, she just slid that right in there. And she was, she was pretty good.
But
looking
she pointed to a sign that specifically said, "Don't move the table." So what do? Some asshole. I just roll in and move the table. That's right.
Pizza was good. Week, so. Company,
Yeah.
So, went back to the hotel room, laid out all our gear for the next day. Some of you guys were using Reflectix to make some cozies for your water.
Yeah, those worked phenomenal. That cozy worked phenomenal for my water bottle.
So, So through the week, I'm watching a lot of the news, a lot of the weather, and all they're talking about is don't go outside unless you have to, and blah, blah, blah. And, we're laying in that hotel room, and I was pretty apprehensive. Could you guys tell?
I know, I read it.
You were completely psyching yourself out the entire time.
I would have to agree with you.
Yeah, it was just the look on your face. Like right now, you're red. I don't know why you're red, but it was like the color was just sucked out of your face, and you look real serious and somber. And
yeah, kind of like when the live stream wasn't working. Kind of reminiscent of that.
Well, it's and then you got Miyagi over there going, "Oh yeah, I wish it was colder." Blah blah blah, and I'm like, so yeah. I mean, like Rob said, it was 20 degrees colder than I had ever camped.
Mm-hmm.
I've never walked across the lakes like that to a remote location, so I was a little apprehensive. But
see, like if you do a lot of ice fishing, like walking across frozen lakes like that, isn't that all that strange really? But
I mean, I've done it when I was younger. I used to drive my car on the ice all the time when I lived down in Winona, but it's a little different when you're going out to a lake that there isn't high traffic on.
Yeah, exactly. Almost no traffic.
So.
Oh, that's true.
All right. So the next morning we wake up, and Miyagi likes to wake up at like 4:30 or 5 in the morning.
I don't think he likes to. I think he just does. His body's wired.
I like to.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Damn.
When I'm with you guys, I just kind of chill out a little bit. You're getting the
So
chill already.
I wake up in the hotel, and it's like 7:30 or 8, and everybody's still laying in their bed. And I'm like, yes, less time I have to spend out in the cold. But, and that, Miyagi, you were even saying that. It's like, well, we're only hiking like a mile into camp. We're in no hurry here, so.
No. Did we get an actual distance to camp?
No.
I don't think we did.
I think
it was like 7-8 miles, right?
Yeah. In dog miles. It was about a mile, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So anyway, we got all packed up, grabbed some breakfast at the gas station. Rob, you went and got a different set of liners for your mucklucks, a second set. I never used my second set, by the way.
Yeah, neither did I. And the idea behind that is if you're going to do a lot of activity in your mucklucks, the wool liners that are in there, those could get wet. And if you have wet liners, that's bad. So the idea is change out the wet ones for dry ones and then let the wet ones dry, But
right.
My feet never got wet or sweaty, so.
But here's the thing about the mucklucks is they're designed to breathe, unlike a standard, like an Iceman or a lacrosse boot. When you're sweating, that's all staying in there because the rubber is actually holding in the perspiration, the vapor that's coming off of your feet. So I think our feet had a chance to breathe that entire time, and I've never experienced that before. So when I took off my boot, even in the negative temperatures, it wasn't like in the morning where you got this ice brick that you got to try weaseling your foot in. It was very malleable. I could get my foot right in there. So, and we were working. I mean, we were cutting wood and doing a lot of activity. So that was good.
All right. So we hiked in that first day, or I should say we got our food at the gas station. We drove out to the trailhead. The nice thing about the trailhead that we went to is it was a plowed parking lot. Very nice road for the middle of the winter, in the middle of the Boundary Waters. Plowed parking lot. Unloaded our gear. Went walking in. Milos was riding the sled most of the time on the trail. We rode our sleds down the hill. Well, Rob didn't. Well, how come you didn't ride your sled down?
I didn't see you guys doing that.
Oh, okay.
So, because I was filming, doing my thing up in the hill. So I was just like, oh, well, let's just demonstrate how to go downhill with a polk.
We didn't know where you went. We thought you were up there pooping.
Yeah, it's possible.
I was just filming. Those YouTube guys.
Yep.
The problem that I got to tell people about riding my polk down was my poles that I pulled my polk with, they went bend back towards my sled. So I had to hold them straight up. and my snowshoes were on the back of my pulk with with
the cleats
poking up. So I'm holding my poles sitting on the cleats going, ah!
Lesson learned.
That was a good time.
But it was a good time. So we walked in, set up the warming tent first. Miyagi, tell us a little bit about why we picked the camp spot that we did.
So I think there was a pretty strong, what was it, northwest wind. So we had talked to one of the outfitters at the store that we went to, and there was 3 campsites on Hegman Lake. And originally I thought the north one would have been the best, but he was talking about there's some open water over there and that it wasn't exactly the best sheltered. So there was a small peninsula that came out in the middle of Hegman Lake there. And he said, it's not actually on the point. I thought that if we were going to be camping right on the point, that we would be right in the wind. But the campsite was actually around the peninsula there. So that's where we encountered the slushy area, if you guys remember, when we were walking through.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
As we got closer to the point there, it started getting a little bit mushy, so we kind of veered back out in the lake to get some better ice. And we veered around, and sure enough, this little alcove kind of cleared out. The wind died right down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a perfect little spot. Really nice.
Yeah, it was nice.
So we got there. First thing we did is we set up a tent that Krusty brought for warming.
Yep, and the tent I brought, it wasn't anything special. It was just a 4-man tall tent. You know, it's a car camping tent. It wasn't a winter tent. It wasn't a single wall 4 seasons. It was just a regular old tent that was big and that we could all stand in. And our thoughts were get something like that set up, so just in case, if we needed to get out of the elements, out of the wind, something happened, we had that safe area. Hindsight, probably didn't need it, but it was nice to know that it was there just in case. If we had to, we all could have huddled in there with a heater.
Peace of mind.
If we had to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after we got that set up, we all went and set up our sleep systems. Krusty, why don't you tell them about our sleep? Krusty and I have about the same sleep system. Why don't you tell them what we were sleeping in?
Yep. So Almost and I opted to bring our Ridge Runner hammocks, you know, in our true hanging fashion. We found a spot just above the campsite in this little lower area that really sheltered us from the wind. It wasn't low enough to be a cold well by any means, so it was actually pretty protected down there. We ended up shoveling out a really good section where our hammocks were going to hang, which helped create walls to meet up with our rain flies to knock down the wind even more. And the sleeping arrangements for Milos and Miyagi, they decided to bring, you know, a Hillberg, which is like a legit like expedition kind of style tent. And from what I gathered, I mean, it was like a little spa in there. They had like a sauna. They were cooking breakfast in there. And they were super warm. Yeah,
it was. And Milos isn't quite prepared for this kind of hammock camping. So his boots is what really. Yeah. Anyways,
well,
he has no underquilt either.
Yeah, he's insane
whatsoever. In fact, in prior, you know, these death marches that we go on, he would sleep inside of his pulk sled. So his sleep system is I'm not even sure what brand it is, but it's probably some Walmart brand sleeping bag with a number of military wool blankets and a tarp. And he would put this over top of him. And he's had that down to, I don't know, maybe -5, -7. The guy's an animal. I mean, you guys can attest to that.
And he sleeps in the pulk, right?
And he sleeps inside of his pulk. And
inside of the pulk.
Yep. And he puts the tarp over top of him and then wraps up in this one sleeping bag and blankets and things. And I thought, you know, as we're watching the temperatures drop significantly, I'm like, I was planning on hammocking with you guys. And I'm like, no, I got to bring out the Hilleberg. And Trips and I bought that a number of years ago. It's a 4-season. It's a bomb-proof. You could take this thing up to Everest. I mean, it is designed to take high winds. It's a double-wall tent with a large vestibule. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to bring all my extra down. I'm going to take all of Tripp's stuff. I'm going to bring that with me. That's a nice thing about pulk sledding is you can bring all kinds of stuff. This is not a lightweight trip. I mean, we were bringing out all kinds of stuff. I mean, gosh, I probably had over 100 pounds of stuff in that sled.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. And with Milos, I'm trying to picture him sleeping in his pulk because he doesn't have a very big pulk, and he's not a small guy. He's probably the biggest guy in the group.
Yeah,
right.
Stocky wise,
Yes, stocky wise. So I mean, I'm just trying to picture how that even works, but it works for him most of the time.
Yeah. Well, that's why I made him a hammock.
That's right.
Each year I'm going to make him a new piece. So probably by 2025 he will probably have a full system. Yeah, he'll be
go.
By then. Yep.
All right. I like it.
So while we're talking about sleep system, Rob did something that was kind of a for both him and I is talk a little bit about your air mattress.
Yeah. And I showcased this in my trip video. So I don't have dedicated super cold underquilts for my hammock. I have two 20-degree underquilts and a 50-degree underquilt. And I just decided to layer those underneath each other, and stacking quilts works. I mean, it's proven that it works. So in my mind, I'll stack the quilts, and then I'll also add my sleeping pad, my Nemo tensor, in that as well, and that should help, insulate me even more. But truth be told, it actually made me freeze. I thought the sleeping pad would help. No, it just kept the underquilts from doing their job. So all the air that's in the air mattress, it was just holding cold air, and it made me freeze. So as soon as I pulled it out of there, I got warm instantly. So that was an eye opener. So unless you have a pad rated for those temps, don't bother. Rely on your underquilts.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't think about that. It's insulating you from being insulated, right?
Yeah,
right.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Exactly
now,
right.
Since none of us really had a true piece of gear, a top quilt or an underquilt rated to negative 30, I'd be willing to bet that there's people that are curious as to how we did our layering to get down to those temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
So you said, Bob, you have two 20s and a 50, right?
Yep. So I have my original Lynx underquilt from War Bonnet, and that one, it's just so wore out and old. I ended up buying a new underquilt, another 20-degree by Local Libre. So I layered those, and then I have a homemade Costco blanket underquilt that's designed for gathered in hammocks. But I was able to put that underneath, and then I had a underquilt protector. So all those layers on the bottom, stacked up, I could have got quite a bit warmer, quite a bit colder on that, because it was 85 degrees in my hammock. It was 100 degrees colder outside. Top quilt the same way. My coldest top quilt is a 10-degree. I layered a 30-degree inside of it. Warm as could be. Oh, and I had a wool blanket over me. Yeah. I brought a wool blanket, and I tried this out before during the Minnesota frozen butt hang, and it worked really, really well. A lot of people were concerned that it was compressing my down from above. Was not an issue at all. But even more importantly, I had the blanket folded. I was able to fold one layer on my underquilts to keep it from getting really wet around the collar. Mm-hmm. And then the other half of the wool blanket, I just threw over my head. So I created this warm air chamber. So all my condensation from my breath was kept and suspended in the wool. It was amazing. There was no drippage. No, it was crazy. My face was all warm and
the great thing about it being that cold is I didn't do it as well as Rob around my face with the condensation. But with it being that cold, my underquilt, or I should say my top quilt, never got wet. It got all frozen.
But it didn't stay wet. That makes sense.
But it never got wet because it was so cold. It was a little crusty. Crusty. But, so that's the one thing
what were you using, Jeremy, then?
I had my underquilt was, I did have a negative 20 underquilt, but as you guys know, I sleep cold. So I had a negative 20 and a 20 underneath me. And I had an underquilt protector like Rob had. So that cut that wind. And on top, I had a 0-degree top quilt with some overstuff and a 20-degree top quilt inside of it.
It's funny with that much more insulation that I had, we were probably the same temp. I was probably still warmer than you, probably.
Yeah, and I mean it. And all along, even before we went out there, when I'm worried about how cold it's going to get, I wasn't worried about sleeping. I was worried about being warm when I wasn't in my hammock.
Right.
Specifically hands, feet, those type of things.
Right. So for those of you that don't know, you can go to enlightenedequipment.com. They're kind of a cottage vendor for top quilts, bottom quilts, all things down. They actually have a chart on stacking quilts. So two 20-degree quilts should get you down, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, about -20.
Yep, that's what they say. Yep.
What the chart said. And I brought 2 Enlightened Equipment 20-degree quilts is what I used, and it hit -27, and I was toasty warm.
Yeah.
So, hats off to Enlightened Equipment. I did bring some backup gear again. I wanted to make sure that Milos was okay, so I actually had those 2 for myself. I had 2 Costco quilts just as a barrier, and then I also brought 2 North Face 20-degree bags as well.
Holy
one
moly.
Synthetic and one regular. Those didn't even get used. Yeah. Milos would not accept them.
Okay, Miyagi, let's be honest. We know how you two stayed warm in that tent. You were spooning, right?
It was actually the Enlightened Equipment. They make a 2-person
Who's the
quilt.
big spoon?
I was. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. Well, I forgot what it's called, but yeah, they're actually having a sale on it right now, that 2-person quilt.
I'm kidding, of course.
Yeah.
No, but they do.
Okay.
No, they do have that, but we weren't in the same bag.
So, talking equipment and something that had to happen on the first day, let's talk about pooping. I think I might have been the first one to poop, but here's the deal is I pooped before I put on my overalls. So there's a privy out at all these campsites in the Boundary Waters. Mm-hmm. And, I just cleared off the snow. The good thing is that the privy doesn't smell because it's all frozen, right? Mm-hmm. But I get out there and I use wet wipes. And I thought I had my wet wipes in this chest pack that would keep them thawed out. But I got out there and it was like an ice chunk. So I take out my
scraper. Got a scraper?
Ouch. I take out my hand warmer. And I started rubbing my hand warmer on my wet wipe. So you want to make sure that you're prepared before you pull down your pants in that type of weather. So
it actually brings up a really good point, almost. And this is one of the questions that I think I got the most was, how do you keep all of your electronics, because you're filming, I think we were all using cell phones, except for you, almost. You actually had a camera, and you were having some problems with that. But, if you're bringing a water filter with you, a lighter, if you're using alcohol for an alcohol stove, all these things have to stay warm in transit because literally in those temperatures, it doesn't take long for things to freeze like instantaneously. So what I was doing is I would wear a mid layer similar to what I have right now, and I would put all my stuff in my kangaroo pocket, and that would be layered underneath numerous other layers as we were traveling or when I was in camp. So literally I had all this stuff on me at all times. And this is one of the only times that I will actually wear like one of those Camelback water reservoirs, the water bladders. Mm-hmm. So what I do is I wear that, and I had that on the entire time. I even slept with it. And I would run that through my clothes, and the straw part would stick out just right by my chin. So the entire time I had, and it was actually warm water, but I had 2 liters of water available to me at all times because when you're out in this kind of cold, you really don't think about drinking a lot of water. And what I've noticed, and this is going back a few years, is I was getting headaches because I wasn't drinking enough water. Mm-hmm. And you don't realize it, but you're out there sweating quite a bit. Yeah. And if you're not hydrating like you should, you're going to start getting headaches and all that. So, and getting water, I mean, that's something that we'll talk about. But having readily available water can be tricky. When you're talking about negative. I mean, we were operating during those days anywhere from -5 to -15 during the days. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking about electronics. I thought I was being smart ahead of time. I bought this chest pack probably just a little chest bag. And I was going to put all my batteries, my phone, my wet wipes, all that stuff in there. It didn't work, because what I didn't think about is, okay, I'm putting it right against my body, right on my base layer. And then I have a couple mid layers and a couple coats. And all those layers over the top of that, first I looked like I had really big boobs. But all those layers pulled that pack down, and it wouldn't stay on my chest. It's kind of down around my belly, and stuff didn't stay warm. So after that first night, I went back to, like you're doing, is, I have all these layers on and down on, and I just started shoving things in different pockets in the mid layers, which you have to think about, because you're like, all right, I need a camera battery. I've got
which layer?
I've got 6 pockets to choose from. Which one were they in?
Yep. And I got to say, backing up, when we were walking out across Hegman, or really before that, when we were deciding what we were going to wear, you still sweat. And I think we left and it was -5 when we were walking across the lake. And so, you don't want to be completely bundled up, because Rob, you were saying on the way out, you're like, guys, and we were moving fast. We were moving, at a slow and steady pace, but Rob was overheating. I mean, he was actually getting warm.
I was boiling, and I had to stop. And at those temperatures, you can't just take your hat off. You can't just open up everything, because any sweat that you have on your head and your body, it's going to freeze.
Yeah.
And you could get frostbite.
Rob was giving me a lecture on day 2 when we were gathering firewood, and I overheated, and I came back and I just stripped down, and you could see the steam just coming off of me, and he's like, dude, put some clothes on. I'm like, just give me a second.
Yep. Because seriously, and your internal temp could just be like over the top, but still, the outer surface of your skin, your ears, the top of your ears, your fingers, these things, they can get.
It's easy to forget how cold it is out there sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And until you touch something with your fingers that's metal or something, and it sticks, and you're like, oh yeah, it's cold out, isn't it?
Yeah, anything metal, like tent stakes or something like that.
Let's back up a little bit. You mentioned, Miyagi, about a water filter, and most winter campers don't bring a water filter because it's just too easy to freeze it, where you're boiling your water and that sort of thing. So
a Sawyer squeeze, Be Free, any of those kinds of filters, worthless.
They would be frozen before you got done filtering your water.
So tell them what we did.
Okay, we're kind of bouncing around here, but basically Milos had a big pot, and all of the...
I bring the pot.
Yeah. All of the Boundary Waters campsites have a grade over kind of near the campfire, and ours was really nice because we didn't build our campfire underneath it. We built it next to it, and we built a separate campfire that was smaller underneath this little grade, and I brought out 2 gallons of water that were frozen, and we started out where we just melted that ice, and then after that we just shoveled snow into the pot, and we just kept that pot going for most of the day.
Yep. And now here's something that I wish I would have thought of before the trip, and I purchased since then, a small minnow scoop. You ever see these fishermen use them?
Oh, just sure.
Tiny little net.
Yep.
Because what's going to happen is when you're shoveling the snow, and you want to take snow as much as you can away from the trees. If you're in, because you're going to get sticks and you're going to get pine
debris
debris. So if you can't get yourself away from the trees, but you're going to end up with all kinds of debris inside of there, and having a small little scoop that you can kind of go around the pot and take that stuff out. So I purchased one. It was like $1.99.
Yeah.
Like an ice fishing scoop.
Nice.
So I got that now. That was real helpful. But if you look at this water, it does not look clean. It was kind of a dingy brown, but we didn't care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. But that's why we drink a lot of coffee and hot chocolate and apple cider and warm beverages, because just drinking the straight water, you could tell it was not quite water.
Yeah.
Okay. We just flew past my favorite topic, which is pooping. And Miyagi, tell us about your whole poop process.
So, usually, I don't know, my body knows I'm on vacation. I know there's a lot of people out there that are like this. You just kind of shut down.
Yep.
Every
I do the same
single
thing.
day, like clockwork, I had to go poop. It was crazy. But Jeremy and I have these wool bib overalls. So it's not like just drop and trow. I mean, you have to take off, because when you're in camp, you have all your layers on.
Yeah, you got like 5 layers on the top with the bibs underneath them.
Oh, yeah. Well, and we have these
anoraks.
We all have anoraks on.
Yeah.
So there's big wool pullover things. And then I had 2 mid layers on like this, plus the bibs. So you got to go and take all this stuff off to undo the bibs and then put that back on. So you're kind of doing the duck walk, the little penguin walk over to the privy. It's not bad. You just don't want to linger,
No, you do not.
No. But, I got to say, I thought it was going to be colder sitting down on that fiberglass bowl that, your butt's going to freeze.
Yeah.
But it wasn't
warmed
bad.
up quick.
But
yeah, it really was.
It's kind of like Shug says. I mean, the whole process of when you're about to poop, your body knows what it's about to do. And it's working, and I don't know, I wasn't that cold sitting there. So
no, I thought I would be when it was, I think it was negative 15 the first time I pooped. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be horrible. This is going to be bad. And it wasn't bad at all. Now that's another tip for you. If you have the wet wipes like Jeremy was talking about, keep those inside of your mid layers, because we lost Rob.
Sorry.
Those things are going to freeze on you. He's got to poop.
No, I don't.
Well, and like I said, you want to make sure that wet wipe is thawed out before you take your pants off.
Yeah. I had a lot of stuff inside of my mid layers. I had all kinds of doodads and gadgets because it was easy to lose them.
So moving along here, we talked about pooping. We talked about the water. That first day, I don't know if you guys noticed it, but I don't know what was going on with me, but I just wasn't thinking straight. And I wasn't, functioning at 100% mental capacity.
Yeah, you were a little off. Yeah, I recall that.
And it didn't really hit me until I went to bed that night. And so Rob and I had worn down this trail. Our hammocks were probably 75 feet away from camp. And just going back and forth, we wore down a trail. And I got up from camp, and I was nice and warm, and I went to my hammock, and I got lost. I went down the wrong trail. And I was just...
You didn't tell us that.
No, I walked...
Oh,
that's because I went to my hammock.
Right? Yeah.
But I started walking down a different trail. And I probably went, 3 minutes on this walk, and I was like...
Oh, 3 minutes? Holy
exactly.
Boy.
And I was just like, I don't think this is right. I should probably go back.
Wow.
And that's how you lose friends.
But I mean, it's like, have you guys ever, I know you have, but if you've ever been under the influence of alcohol or something else, where sometimes you're just like, whoa.
That's funny.
I need to chill out because I'm not thinking straight here. But anyway, so we got back to our hammocks to sleep. We had the disposable hand warmers, toe warmers, switch out the socks, put on the socks. I had some slippers. They weren't down booties. They were just a cheap version of them. And I wore those inside of my my quilts, and I think they helped a little bit too. And I have to get up and pee in the middle of the night. So wearing those little slippers helped for doing that.
Nice. Yeah, when you're taking water in, inevitably in the middle of the night, water has to escape as well. So I prepared for this. I actually bought a funnel, this flexible funnel that I could pee right out of the hammock with. Now,
really
I usually
little
pee
funnel.
out of the hammock. Yeah, I usually pee out of the hammock anyways, but with all the layers of all the quilts and everything, I just needed a little bit, more reach. But that little funnel, that little $8 funnel was amazing. You know, it's So
Rob
that
uses
that
it at home
if you're
because it
gonna
was
pee
so
out of
amazing.
Was that tiny tubing that you had?
Yeah, that really.
We're getting a little personal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but seriously, it worked well. It worked well.
Well, you're not the only one. I actually bought one as well.
Yeah, I know.
I bought the little accordion one. So it's a plastic, like accordion tube. It's got a flip up on it, right? I thought, hey, this is great. You know, the first time I went to use it, I pulled it apart and it just split in half.
It just shattered.
How are you going to use that in a tent, though?
Well, Milos would hold it.
Yeah.
When you say it, you mean the funnel, right?
Funnel, yeah.
Okay.
The funnel.
Whatever.
It's cold. It was cold.
Oh, that's funny.
Hold it. All right.
So Miyagi, when I paused there, I actually sent you a screenshot of what you look like. Like I can see your right cheek, and that's it, and then your shoulder. I don't know what it looks like on your screen. Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if it was the same as mine.
He's all right because I have that overlay on there, and it's
okay,
and everything.
Because from my view, he looks like this. He looks like this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all that counts is Jeremy's view. So I just sent you a screenshot. I'm like, this is what you look like.
All right, so we go to bed that first night. We wake up the next morning. 15 below. What was it when we woke up?
Yeah, 15, 16 below, and that's straight temp. That's without wind chill. And speaking of wind chill, it was windy the whole time, like a legitimate wind. Wind chills were in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, below zero.
Out on the lake, it was a lot worse. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So I wake up and first of all, I'm like, I don't want to get out. Well, I got up and I went to the bathroom at like 5 a.m. Slept for a couple more hours, and I was nice and comfortable in there. I didn't want to get out of my hammock, but I heard Milos and Miyagi kind of over the hill. I thought they were up and about, but turns out they were in their tent making noise. And I get out my camera and start shooting a video, and I'm looking at myself, and everything is just covered in frost. And I'm like, oh boy. So I heard Krusty snoring a little bit earlier, but he wasn't snoring anymore. So I'm like, Krusty, you awake over there?
You alive?
Are you alive? Yeah.
No.
I said.
Meanwhile, Milos and Miyagi are making bacon and eggs.
Bacon and eggs
in their
tent.
And yeah,
super safe, open flame.
Yeah, it's fine. That's fine.
I say to Krusty, I'm like, it's cold out. Are we going to do this again tonight? There's a little bit of hesitation.
And then what did I ask you?
What are you thinking? Or I can't remember.
I said, are you trying to look for someone to back you for leaving tonight? And you're like,
yep.
Yes. Yep.
So while you guys are having this conversation, I was talking to Milos, and we're sitting there going, "How do you think the guys did? You think they're gonna want to go again to sleep out here tonight?" And Milos just like 60-40,
60-40.
Which interpreting Milos, he says 60-40. That's what everybody else would say. 50-50.
Yeah, 60-40 for Milos.
60-40. Yeah,
so
exactly.
Milos said if you guys were gonna back down, he said we weren't leaving.
And that's fair.
That's what he said.
So we got up and we're still 60-40. Got out of the hammock.
Wait, no, not we. You.
Okay, if that makes you feel any better. It was me, but got up, got dressed, walked down towards the campsite. I was hoping there would be a campfire going, but there wasn't yet.
So did I. When I heard them up and about, I'm like, oh, they got a fire going? Not a chance.
So we went inside of the warming shelter and got the little heater going there. I've tried to make these burritos that were a terrible idea because the burrito's this big around, right? And you got it on this little stove, and the outside was crunchy, the inside was still a little frozen. But I ate it anyway.
You had a couple of food mishaps, like your ham and cheese, like it just
and I
food faux pas.
Yeah, and splash of boiling hot water on my hand. That wasn't a good idea, But then we went outside, and it was a beautiful sunny morning.
It was gorgeous.
And started building the campfire, and we're sitting on the log, and I just said, "Yep, all right, we can do this another night. We're good. Don't worry, Rob. We can stay."
All right.
Are you good with staying, Robin? Robin? Rob?
And I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're going to do it, I'll do it.
Okay. Yeah.
Milos is just over there. These guys, I tell you, these guys.
Yeah. Mills with his tennis shoes on.
Yeah, with his tennis shoes.
That's pretty much what they were. I mean, let's be honest. They were hiking boots that had 200 grams of thinsulate. Now, if you don't know what that means basically a tennis shoe. Like, yeah. My Arctic hunting boots are 1,600 grams, and my feet still get cold in those.
Yeah.
Not mucklucks, though.
I think we sold him on the mucklucks, though. I think he'll be getting a pair.
Yeah, he should.
So eventually we get done eating, we come out, and first thing we start doing is get more firewood.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep. Order of the
Miyagi,
day.
I think you had a thing on my video where you told us about the schedule for the day.
Yeah, there was 3 things that we did. Process, cook, and eat.
Yep.
And then repeat those 3
Correct.
things.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think you said process firewood, bacon. Process firewood, bacon.
Oh, yeah, bacon.
Processed
I brought
firewood.
2 pounds of bacon. And I tell you what, that was good. I would bring more. I probably would have brought 4 pounds of bacon.
You got that center cut butcher's bacon?
Yeah.
Oof,
Yeah.
dude.
Oh, it was good.
Yeah,
It was
when we do this again next time, I'll bring more food to share, like bacon, and talk a little bit about your fry bread.
Yeah, so actually I'm going to be doing a video on this. It's the Navajo Fry Bread, or Native American Fry Bread. They also call it bannock bread. Our neighbors to the north call it bannock bread. But it's really simple. It's 3 cups of flour. You got a teaspoon of baking powder, salt. Rob and I like making it a little bit more savory, so we put some garlic salt, some onion powder in there. And you're mixing that into a dough, flattening it out, and then you're frying it in either olive oil. I like to use avocado oil. It's got a higher smoke point on it, but it's really easy to make at home. And then what you can do is freeze it, put it in wax paper. You make it into kind of like pancake shape,
Sure.
and then you put your frying pan over the fire and let it get up to about, I think it was about 350, 360 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Take a stick and you put your stick in the oil, and as soon as it starts bubbling around the end of the stick, you know the oil is ready. Slap that in there, and you let it boil, flip it over, and you got yourself some fry bread. And it's really good, especially on days like that where it's super cold out.
Yeah.
You see in my video, we're all just sitting around the fire eating our
Just
bread.
eating. Exactly.
And,
Now,
and on a trip like this, you really need to focus on the camp time, because you're not doing a whole lot of hiking. On temperatures like that, we had talked about only going a mile out. Originally, Jeremy had put together a nice trip around Angleworm, and I think that was going to be, 13 miles or so?
Yeah, we're going to day hike in and set up base camp probably 7 or 8 miles in, and then day hike out another 6-7 miles.
Yeah, that would have been horrible.
Oh, yeah.
In those conditions.
That
Would have been horrible. So, I would realistically, I think if you're going to be dealing with anything below, 0 really, -5, 0 to -5, you really got to cut your mileage way back, way back, and pick yourself a site that you're going to have ample wood. And the nice thing is that we could travel on all the different points of the lake because it was frozen. Mm-hmm. So, we had all kinds of available, really nice seasoned down pine. So when we went out there, that was the order of business. And I knew when these 2 guys were putting together their hammocks and things and kind of getting settled, Milos and I, of course, were in one tent, so we kind of got everything done faster. And I said, let's go start processing wood. And with those polk sleds, it's really nice. You take your saws and your axes. Oh, and that's the other thing, is a full-size axe. Rob and I had the smaller axes, but I thought, we're going to be processing a lot of wood. So a full-size splitting axe is really the order of business. Again, with the polk sleds, weight is not really an option. So I picked up a discounted one at my local farm and fleet that we have, and it was I don't know.
And that thing was awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Game changer. So we brought that, and I had a silky saw, the big boy, which was nice.
Wow. That thing was amazing.
For it. freaking butter through that wood.
Yep.
So that was good. But we all brought them because you do want to have backups. I mean, I couldn't imagine not having campfires out there, and we would have turned around.
Well, and
yeah, that would have been brutal.
You know, it wouldn't have been so bad. I think hiking across the lakes and walking. I don't think we would have been cold when we were doing that. The part that would have sucked is we wouldn't have had enough time to process enough firewood to build the big fires and keep warm.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
and I think our base layers would have been much more wet than they were.
Yeah, Rob would have had to strip down a little bit.
Yeah.
But
the
other
we spent a lot of time.
The other nice thing about winter out there is we could access some dead trees that people in the summer wouldn't be able to. I'm pretty sure that area that we went to that first day was a swamp.
Like a bog.
A bog that since it was frozen, we could get right to it. And in the summer, you wouldn't even try to do that. And the second day, we walked across the lake, to a different peninsula and grabbed firewood off of there. And you wouldn't do that in a canoe. Because I don't think there's much firewood in our campsite.
No. Usually in the Boundary Waters, any available firewood within 500 yards of the campsite, it's gone. It's been ransacked. I mean, there's nothing. You have to really, really venture out further and further and further. And the thing is about the Boundary
that
Waters,
we did do was walking to these different points of the lake to find wood, and so that's how we get our extra hiking in.
Yeah, it's kind of nice.
In the Boundary Waters, you have to harvest the things that are already fallen and on the ground. You can't chop anything. You can't chop anything standing. So,
and there was tons of that. Tons of
it. Oh yeah, it was amazing.
Yep.
All right, so let's back up a little bit. That first night, you guys made some chili in a big pot. I wasn't planning to eat the chili, but I had it because there's leftovers. But just in that water pot that Milos, that we had for water later, that big pot, a bunch of chili over the grate.
Yep, that was good.
And then
you kind of went your own way on food, and it didn't work out great.
No, I was good. I was before we left. I was like, chili doesn't sound good, so I got a big can of beef stew. And then I just let these guys eat their chili, and I was like, you got some chili left over in there.
Hey guys, you got any chili left?
I made sure they were all full and didn't want any more before I kind of weaseled my way in on that. But night 2, Miyagi made fajitas.
Yes.
I can't even remember.
So that was difficult as well because I brought all the ingredients. I brought the sour cream. I bought the the salsa. I brought the cheese. And guess where all that was? Inside my layers.
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And didn't you bring eggs?
Worked out. I did.
So the problem with eggs is they can't freeze.
No, and that's where the hand warmers come in. So I kind of had them stuffed between some layers inside of my poke sled, and then it had hand warmers on top of them. It worked, but as soon as I brought them out of there, then they started getting all gelatinous, and that was...
Yep.
I mean, and it didn't take long for that to happen either.
No, not at all. Nope.
And
I brought a pound of bacon. I brought like a kielbasa sausage, and I kept them in a cooler, a little soft-sided cooler with hand warmers. And even at 20 below, they did not freeze.
Yeah, that was a good idea.
They didn't freeze. It was crazy.
Yep.
All right, so we had a monster fire on the second night where after a while you guys just started throwing like 4-foot sections of logs on there.
Oh, yeah.
And they burned.
They burned really well.
No problem.
They were dry. But I remember sitting in front of the campfire doing this with a piece of cardboard because the fire was so freaking hot. And we had a tarp up, right? So we couldn't move back. But it was nice.
Well, the tarp was nice because it cut that wind from coming from behind us. So kudos to Rob for putting that up.
And it was a silver tarp.
Yeah.
And it reflected a bunch of heat, and it kept a bunch of the heat in there. So on the fire side, it was hot.
Yeah.
But behind the tarp, freezing, obviously.
Yeah. I would have done that again. That was a really good idea.
Yeah.
Was there any condensation on the tarp? No?
No.
Nope.
That's probably
Nope.
ventilated real well. So.
Yeah.
All right. So we went to bed. We were going to go to bed that night, but we're like, it's going to be minus 27 when we wake up tomorrow morning. So we tried to pack up as much as we could the night before when we were nice and warm, so we didn't have to do it the next morning. So day 3, we woke up. Was the sun shining that morning? I think it was a little overcast, wasn't it?
No, it was shiny.
Oh, it's pretty shiny.
Yeah.
It's sunny out.
I think it got a little overcast when we were walking in, but it was shining when we woke up. Tore down, packed up, walked out, said our goodbyes, drove home.
My goggles iced over so bad inside, they were useless. I couldn't see anything.
Why do you think that happened?
Anything. I think because I kept them in the warming tent against the wall, and I think they just got moisture inside, and it finally just froze. And
do you think maybe you didn't have a good seal on your face or something too, or?
No, I think at that point it was just too late. So, but yeah, so I had to just wear the goggles on my forehead.
These work pretty good.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But walking in on that lake, it was windy, and that was definitely cold. Where I'm surprised, Miyagi, you didn't get frostbite not having your cheeks covered up.
Yeah, Miyagi tough.
When we got home, like the next day or two, I had a bunch of skin peeling off the bottom side of my nose here. I don't know if it was just minor frostbite, or, as we know, my nose was running the whole time we were there.
It was a damn faucet. It was a faucet, man.
That was the first time I've ever had the icicles in my beard like that. And what was interesting is, just the act of breathing, I would just frost up. Mm-hmm. And whenever I would move my chin, it would tear the hair out of my face. So
That's
I don't know, every couple hours I'd have to come back by the fire and just kind of hold my face up and let everything.
I got ice on my eyelashes.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, I don't like. Random.
The one thing that we forgot to do, which I think everyone would have enjoyed, is having the pot of water and throwing that up in the air on that last
in the 20 below. Yeah,
I've seen bad things that have happened to people who have done that though, where they accidentally like do it over the top of them, or you got to be pretty careful when you do that. But that would have been a cool video. Put it on slow mo.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
But
in fact, one of my employees at work told me to do that, and I actually made a note in my phone: throw water in air, and I
throw water in air. Whoops.
Yeah.
So talking about videoing, the one thing that I am going to respect a lot more when I watch these super cold videos is a lot of times you're just focusing on, is that guy getting cold or what's he doing to stay warm? I have a whole new appreciation for trying to shoot a video in that, where not only do you have to worry about your camera freezing up and not working, but you just got to take your gloves off, and it just seems like you're always in a rush. So I had a problem when I got out there. I brought 7 batteries for my camera, and by the time I got done setting up my hammock, I had already burned through 2 of them. So I'm like, all right, I'll switch over to my phone. So the Tor warmers that you get, the disposable ones, they have an adhesive on them. So I stuck one of those on my phone to try to keep it warm. But everyone's like, why do you got a maxi pad on your phone?
That's right. It worked though, right?
Yeah.
It did. And actually, in the past, my camera had worked better than my phone in cold weather. But in that cold of weather, it wasn't working. My camera, like on the walkout and even on the walk in, I set up some sweet shots where we're walking by, and it probably took 5 minutes for me to walk out to the distance, and my camera was turning off after 30 seconds.
Yeah,
it's like
that's
too cold.
Cool. Right, but you have a newer phone now than you did before. Like, I think you have the 10R, and that's probably got the best battery so far in an iPhone.
Yeah, so. I was mixing it up, shooting it with both of them. But all right, so we talked about this a little bit. What were you guys the most afraid of with the cold weather and on this trip?
Other than cold?
Yeah, but I mean, more specifically, my biggest apprehension was, if something went really wrong, being able to get out quickly, like if you break your leg or something.
Sure.
But being that close to our cars, a mile away, it was a little less. And I should mention that we did have cell service at the campsite, and we all did have our Garmin GPSs. Miyagi and I had them. So I never turned my GPS on, but I could have if needed.
Yeah, as far as apprehensions go, I mean, I wasn't really worried about too much. I know we had the gear. We were still in close proximity to the parking lot. Other than, and this is coming from spending time in the Boundary Waters, having enough firewood, because a fire really does make the difference. I mean, not only for warmth and a source for cooking, but for morale as well. Like a campfire is just that sense of safety. So that was kind of one of my big concerns. Hopefully we can find wood, and still, I'll say it again. It was the best wood that best wood haul I've ever had.
Yeah, I got to say the same.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this, and looking back on the trip, I can honestly say I was never really cold. Like cold to the bone, like your core was cold. My fingers were cold, my nose got cold, that sort of thing. But I was never cold. In fact, I was colder on our Ozark Highlands Trail trip in Arkansas
absolutely.
When it was 35 degrees than I was on this trip.
Yes, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. 100%. Yep.
So, were you guys ever cold?
Nope.
No?
Not at all. No. No, and in fact, I was going to ask you guys, it got down to negative 27. I think looking at the wind chill, I think it was hovering right around on that windy day, negative 50 or so.
Yep.
What do you think, given what we hadn't changed anything, what do you think you could have gotten down to?
Sleeping or
the sleep
awake?
System goes?
Everything.
Well,
we were pretty comfortable. I think we probably could have knocked down 20 more degrees, I bet.
It's hard to say. I would agree. As long as as long as you get in your hammock warm, I mean that's the key. What people need to know about down is down won't warm you up. Down insulates you and keeps the warm in. So if you go to bed with cold feet, you're going to have cold feet. You got to go to bed with warm feet or other body parts, and you'll stay warm. So, I don't know. I think here's the problem is I think I would have been fine for 2 nights. I think I might have gotten cold if we would have stayed out there one more night. Just from the condensation and the freezing up of the top of my quilts.
Yeah. I think this was a great test of the gear. I would have been pretty confident down to negative 40, I think. Mm-hmm. We were right on that precipice of negative 30. I mean, negative 27, negative 30, you're talking 3 degrees.
Right.
3 degrees. We didn't get cold at all. I know Milos got a little cold because of his feet, but otherwise he was fine. So I think had Milos had better footwear, I definitely think we could have hit another 10 degrees. I think negative 40. I think beyond negative 40, I would have start having some reservations about whether or not we were truly prepared for it.
Yeah.
I mean, with a weather forecast of negative 50, it would have been like, maybe we might need to rethink this.
Well,
that's a real number.
And here's the danger is, I think that we would have been warm, like I was talking about, but maybe we would have gotten injured through frostbite or something like that, where
possibly,
we feel like we're warm, but the end of our nose, our ears, that sort of thing are freezing.
Yeah, potentially. And I got to say, there was a bunch of clothes that I did not wear. I did bring the balaclavas. I brought a face mask. I brought extra stuff. I even bought some choppers in Ely there, and I never wore those. In fact,
you didn't. Yeah.
Okay, so
no, I didn't. In fact, kudos to Z-Packs. I was wearing wristies, so basically it's like a sock with a hole cut in it. it covers here. And I had a pair of wool ones that a friend had made me, and then another set. And I was wearing for gloves a pair of possum down gloves from Z-Packs. That is what I wore for gloves.
Interesting.
So
that's all I had.
Let's transition into here the best gear that you had along. So obviously you're talking about that a little bit. We've talked about the mucklucks already. I was real happy with my Polk. It was brand new, worked fine. Those wool bibs that I know Miyagi and I had new. Now, at first when I wore them, I wasn't real warm, but again, it's an insulator, so you got to be warm before you put them on, right?
So I never brought mine out. I left mine in the car, my wool bib.
Here's something with the wool. When you're sitting around a campfire, if you're wearing polyester layers, obviously they're going to melt if you get an ember on them. But the nice thing about wool is it's actually transferring that heat from the wool to your inner layers. A lot of those polyester layers, especially the hard face stuff, will reflect that heat to a certain extent. It's not going to transfer as much. And when we were talking to Nick in the woods, when we were on the frozen butt hang, he says, aside from the fire retardant properties of wool sitting around a campfire, it's going to transfer that heat a little bit better to your inner core, say, than if you had some sort of a shell on, it's going to reflect more of that heat. Wool is it's going to transfer to your core.
Brilliant.
So I definitely felt that.
I didn't think about that, but that's 100% accurate. Where, we sat at the campfire, and not only were we getting warm, but that wool was getting warm. And we transferred that into the down of our hammock, and we stayed warm.
Yep. And then, of course, we had tricks of, this is one of the only times I think that you're going to find us carrying Nalgene bottles with us. Mm-hmm. At the end of the night, we would heat the boiling water up and fill up our Nalgenes and take that to bed with us, either to cuddle with it or just to keep it from freezing, because that entire pot of water, and I mean, it was, it's about that deep and, yay round, frozen solid as a rock by the morning.
So I didn't sleep with my water, but you bring that up, and most of the time when you go on a backpacking trip, you'll carry a few liters of water, a couple liters of water, right? Well, here you have to worry about keeping that water from being an ice block. So I only had one Nalgene bottle, and I had 4 layers of Reflectix around it. And it didn't freeze at night. So I was happy about that.
So I did the same thing, but we actually put it between the sleeping bags. I didn't cuddle with it to keep me warm. We just slept next to a few water bottles just to have water for the morning time.
Yep.
Dude, I tell you, my hammock was so full because I'm wearing like 5 layers of clothes and 2 top quilts. And it was like, and for some reason, I always put my bug net on, even though there's obviously no bugs, but it was cozy in there. So other good gear that you guys were happy with?
I mean, obviously the mucklucks, right? We've already touched on that a little bit.
Beaver.
Your beaver hat was awesome. Look at that thing.
Tell them about the problem that you had with your beaver hat, though.
Oh, what?
Tell them.
What problem did I have with my beaver hat?
You couldn't hear anything when you're wearing it, right?
Oh, yeah.
What?
So I was looking for these things, and
what?
We actually, exactly. We had a family member I was talking to about this trip, and he's like, don't go out and spend that money, because these things are anywhere from $200 to $400 for a real thick animal fur hat like this.
Handmade.
And he says, don't go out and buy them. So he had 2 of them, and he gave me this one as a gift.
Oh, really?
And it's, beaver hair.
Wow.
So if you're looking for something like this, glacialwear.com is a really good place to go. I was looking at a silver fox hat, but hey, if you can save $250, $300, why not? But the nice thing about this is I wore this pretty much exclusively. I did wear this hat when I was chopping wood, so I wouldn't overheat. But this thing, man, I tell you, it was so incredibly warm that I didn't feel like I had to have a face mask on. I know my cheeks did get red, and I saw that in my video after the fact, but I didn't feel cold. So I didn't feel like I needed to put that balaclava on.
See, and that's where I think the danger would have been if it was 20 degrees colder.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
But
I was prepared.
The other piece of gear I was really happy with, and I didn't. If you saw my gear loadout video, I didn't even have this in there. It was kind of a last minute decision. And it was this gray Balaclava, just a fleece one. I've had this for years. Before I had a hooded down jacket, I wore this when I went backpacking in the summer just to sleep in to keep my head warm. And Rob and I both had a -33 Balaclava. They term it as a mid weight one, but it was super thin, and it wouldn't have done the job. So that thicker fleece one, I was real happy with and liked it. Bad gear. What either didn't function or you didn't need to bring? I'll start.
See, well, I'll go ahead.
I'll start with that chest pack I was talking about. It's just
yeah.
Plus, you're wearing all that gear. I felt like the kid from the Christmas Story. Ah! So I took that off, a little less bulky, and I didn't like that.
The big tent, and didn't need to bring it. You know, we would have been knowing what we knew. We wouldn't have needed it. What else did I bring that I didn't use? I brought a hatchet and an axe. Used the hatchet, didn't use my axe at all because my axe it's just a small forest axe, and it wasn't going to chop those big logs. You know, that's not what it's for. So I could have left that at home for sure. And I used my knife. I used I don't know. What other bad gear? That's all I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I didn't have too much that I didn't use. Pretty much used every. There were some pieces of apparel that I didn't use, but I'm glad that I had with.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that I learned on this cold of a campout is I have these mittens where you can fold these off and you have your fingers handy. And I thought these would be nice when I'm setting up my hammock, but they're a really bad idea. So the problem is you still have your thumb covered up. And when you're doing all the little lines and things like that, it was too hard, and it took me like 5 times as long to do it. So my fingers were freezing. And when I tore down, what I just did is I had some big mittens, and just for 2 minutes at a time, take everything off and do it, put the mittens on, instead of taking 10 minutes to do it wearing these things. It was just...
Right. I think you bring up a really good point. And especially for those of us that maybe consider ourselves maybe a little bit more advanced, where we're getting into the, the ultralight world where you're really focusing on weight, this is not a time to do that. In fact, if you have to tinker with little lines and finesse all this tiny equipment, your hands are going to freeze. You really want to oversize everything, and you want to simplify everything. Mm-hmm. In fact, for my tent stakes, I cut pieces of PVC, a whole bag of PVC, and use those as snow stakes instead of, ultralight tent pegs or whatever. Everything is oversized because, again, weight is not an option. I mean, I guess if you're going on an expedition and you're doing, a ton of miles, but we weren't. So,
any bad gear, Rob? I think you were talking when I had bad.
Any bad gear? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I don't think I had anything that was bad. Like, nothing failed on me that I can think of. Yeah, nothing I can think of.
So,
the one thing I did, I thought was interesting is you brought your little canister stove, your little isobutane stove.
Oh yeah.
Trying to boil water at -10.
You tried to make me look stupid.
I was like, there's not a chance in hell.
Yeah.
Well, even the green propane stoves you're having some issues with, weren't you?
We were, absolutely. Yep. So I bought one of those. It's almost like a Mr. Buddy type heater, and they take the what size are those, Rob? The green tanks you can find at Walmart or whatever.
1 pound
tanks.
cylinders.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I did bring that with the idea that we could cook on it if we needed to. Milos and I did use it in the tent for a short period of time, just while we were getting ready for bed, and then we'd shut it off because they have about a, I don't know, we figured about a 2-hour burn time, 2.5 hour ish. But what we had to do is actually take them out by the fire and warm that and the stove up before we could get it to light. You know, when it's -10, -15 degrees out, it was being finicky.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of their operating temp is right around then, because those different liquids, there's different temperatures where the liquids won't atomize, and you need them to atomize in order for them to ignite.
Right.
You know, that's why butane doesn't work in those temps. They won't atomize in that cold.
Right. I did bring a little firebox with me. It was a solar stove, and we did use that for a while to melt snow. And I got to say that I'm glad that I brought that. It was an excellent backup thing to have. If we weren't finding a ton of big wood, you know, we definitely could have melted snow using that. Sure. You know, would have been slower.
Yeah.
You got to constantly feed the thing, but we could have cooked on it. You know, we could have. We were keeping ourselves warm by it. So a wood box. Wood box is a good thing to have.
So what did you guys learn on this trip?
I was definitely impressed by the layering of the quilts. I think that I think right now I could definitely get down to -40 and be comfortable. So, you know, beyond that, I think beyond -40, and I'm back into the gray zone where I really don't know how my stuff's going to react. Right. But I know with 220-degree quilts, which is what I used, we get down to -27, and I was plenty warm. So.
Yep, that was my biggest takeaway, is the stacking of quilts.
Yep.
Absolutely works.
Yep.
100%. So if you're looking to buy a quilt for cold weather, you don't necessarily have to go buy a 20 below under quilt. So you can just stack a couple of warmer weather ones. That way you have a more versatile sleep system.
Yeah. And again, check out enlightenedequipment.com and you'll find the link in there somewhere, but it's stacking the quilts in which you can bring that down. So like Rob said, you know, if you've got, because many of us have multiple quilts, and, you know, if you got a 50 and a 20, see what that'll take you down to. And it's a rough estimate. I think it's a little bit more of a survival rating. Each of us are different. You know, almost sleeps cold. I sleep a little bit warmer. So you got to test it out. You know, if you're interested in this kind of thing, don't go out on a -15, -20 degree.
Yeah, I was going to say, you definitely need to go someplace local and just try rigging up the multiple underquilts. Rob and I both have bridge hammocks, so it's a little bit easier. But back when I had a gathered end, I had a Wookiee from War Bonnet, which has a fixed suspension where you don't adjust it. And I had a different one from Hammock Gear. And, you know, I learned that the Hammock Gear one had to go on the outside because they were too tight the other way and compressing the down, and you just have to work out some logistics and not try to do it when it's super cold out.
Yeah, or just go out in your backyard and you get frostbite, right?
Yeah, I did that. But I learned from that, though. I learned that, you know, that's the first time that I had gotten frostbite, and I got frostbite on my fingers in my backyard when I was 12 below in my backyard. And as a Minnesotan, I've quite often had like frozen fingers where your fingers are numb and they hurt. And I learned where that line is from being frozen fingers to being frostbite fingers.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even Milos, I think I've shared the story with you that one of the first times that we were in some really cold weather, you know, he's just standing there and he kind of had that deer in the headlight look. You know, you weren't quite there on that first day, Jeremy, but you're talking about not thinking right. You know, Milos is standing there just staring right through me, and you could see him start shivering. I knew he had a little bit of mild hypothermia going on. And he says, I can't feel my fingers. I can't, you know, and I'm like, Milos, stick them down your pants. And, you know, on trips like this, you really start learning your body. And
from sticking your hands down to your pants?
Yeah, exactly. It was like an 8-year-old. Yeah. But no, seriously, you'll learn a lot about yourself and your equipment on trips like this. And that's my big takeaway is stacking the quilts and just seeing how my body reacts, not only, you know, while you're sleeping and keeping warm, but during the day. You know, keep some firewood. Get out there and saw a log, split a couple logs before you crawl into your bag. Get your core temperature, worked up. Bring that wool with you. Wool's a great thing to bring on a trip like this where you're not going that far.
Mm-hmm.
These are things that I would never think about doing. I'm not going to bring a full-size splitting axe on a backpacking trip. Are you kidding me?
Right.
If you say we're going pulking, it's in the sled every time.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not the guy. I hope that I never camp in colder than -27 again. I'm not the type of guy that wants to break a record and prove something. And, there's all these people that go to the frozen butt eggs that brag about, well, I camped out when it was 600 degrees below zero. I'm not the guy that wants to prove that. I'd rather go out next time and have it be 0 degrees and we can walk for 10 miles. I mean,
right.
I want to go and explore and not just prove that I can stay warm.
Yeah. I did like the social aspect of camp, and this was different. And this is something that kind of forced you to do that, because usually, we've hiked enough with you almost that when you're on the trail, it's like, poof, he's gone. This really forced us, to commune around the camp, and we spent a ton of time cooking and laughing. And so it's a different kind of trip, I enjoyed it for that. I mean, I do enjoy the challenge of getting down and saying, man, we hit -27. That's awesome. And we thrived and we had a good time. It's just a different kind of trip, Yeah. I liked it. I had fun.
All right. So I'm going to close up shop here. But one last question is, when are we going to do it again?
I think we're losing all of our cold weather almost here.
Yeah, we are. I don't know. The sooner the better.
Yeah, it was like
tomorrow.
It was like 40 degrees up there. A little bit of slush now.
Yeah. We're getting very slushy here, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's put something on the books.
Next year.
Yep. I don't know. You out there who's watching this, is there something that you'd like to see us do? Something really dumb? Let us know down in the comments.
Well, speaking of dumb, there was a lot of talk that we were going to take our picture at campsite naked. Just wearing our bucklucks.
I was game.
I believe almost you were the ones that said no.
I was game for it the first day, and then we started talking about the next morning when it was 15 below, and I was like, it takes me a lot of time to put my mucklucks on, and that ain't going to happen.
Next time.
All right, speaking of next time, thanks, fellas. Anything else you want to talk about?
Nope. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe.
And if you actually made it to the end of this video, let me know, and maybe I'll give you a sticker. All right, guys. We'll see you later.